It is the 19th century. It is your day off, but you are bored out of your mind. And you obviously have no internet to distract yourself with. So, what do? Visit murder sites, of course. Welcome to the first episode of Fun Facts about Victorian death and mourning. I am your host, the Gentle Faye, a PhD student specializing in Victorian death culture. And in this series, I am sharing some of the dark and the macabre things I've learned along the way. For today's episode, we are going to be delving into the wonderful world of Victorian murders, murder tourism, and souvenirs. We'll be zooming in on two famous murder sites, that of the Red Barn murder and the Radlett murder. Especially during the early 19th century, murder tourism was hot. Victorians would travel far and wide to see the scenes where notorious murders had occurred. One such site was that of the very famous Red Barn murder in Polstead. It was the year 1827 when a woman named Maria Marten was living with her parents in Polstead, Surrey. She had borne two illegitimate children from different men, of which only one had survived, and had now fallen pregnant with a third. This time the father was William Weare, a son of a prosperous tenant farmer. Unfortunately, the child was sickly and died quickly after birth. However, this did not stop Maria from pressing Weare to marry her. Weare had no intention of marrying the girl. Finally, fed up with Maria's constant nagging, he came up with a plan. He convinced both Maria and her family that she was wanted by the local authorities for illegitimate childbearing, and that the best course of action would be for her to disguise herself as a boy, so she and Weare could escape to Ipswich together, where they would finally get married. They would meet in secret in the middle of the night at a barn with a red-tiled roof that was part of the Weare family property, popularly referred to as the Red Barn. For months, Weare updated Maria's family about her supposed whereabouts, making up one excuse after another as to why Maria couldn't visit or contact them directly. Maria's family became increasingly suspicious, and it was at this moment that Maria's stepmother allegedly began to experience prophetic dreams, dreaming that her stepdaughter had been murdered. She was eventually able to convince Maria's father to dig in the barn, and was able to point out the exact location where the poor girl had been buried. Poor Maria had been shot and potentially stabbed, though it wasn't ruled out that the stab wounds were the result of her father's digging. Either way, she had clearly never made it to Ipswich. By the time Weare was finally put on trial in August the following year, news about the murder had spread far and wide. The trial itself attracted so much attention that tickets were being sold in an attempt to contain the crowds. The trial would only last 2 days because Weare made the mistake of trying to represent himself, during which he accused Maria of having committed suicide, which was the taboo at the time, so that immensely backfired. He was sentenced to death by hanging and was publicly executed on Monday, August 11, 1828, in front of a large crowd, which newspaper reporters estimate to have been somewhere between 7,000 and 20,000 spectators large. To commemorate the event, those who attended Weare's hanging could purchase a broadside, which was a printed pamphlet supposedly detailing Weare's version of the trial and his last words, as well as his version of the murder. These broadsides, however, were usually written by people who had never actually talked to the murderer, and the stories within them were often significantly embellished for dramatic effect and to heighten sales. The annual Polstead Cherry Fair, held in mid-July that year, had never attracted as many visitors as after the murder. It was estimated that 200,000 pilgrims came, some from 50 miles distance, to visit the site of the Red Barn murder and to bring home, or rather tear off, a souvenir. In the new monthly magazine, it was reported that parts of the barn were manufactured into toothpicks, tobacco stoppers, and snuff boxes to sell to the eager crowds. But those weren't the only souvenirs to be purchased. For those who had a little bit more coin to spend, they created Staffordshire figurines of the Red Barn, occasionally with Maria and William in front of it. The perfect cozy knick-knack to put above your fireplace, don't you think? Another popular tourist destination was the Radlett murder site. In the year 1828, the unfortunate William Weare was invited by a man called John Thurtle to join him and some friends in a cottage near Elstree in Hertfordshire, supposedly for hunting and to go gambling in London. It was well known that Weare was a successful gambler, and Thurtle, along with his accomplices Hunt and Probert, hoped to rob him of the substantial sum the man was rumoured to be carrying around. What exactly happened remains a bit of a mystery, as the accounts given of the murder differ greatly, and the newspapers tended to over-exaggerate the events. However, the most commonly accepted version seems to be that Thurtle threw the plan out of the window and decided to murder Weare on his own as soon as he saw an opening, by initially trying to shoot him. However, when the gun misfired, he resorted to cutting his neck and bludgeoned in his skull for good measure. Thurtle, Hunt and Probert then disposed of the body by stuffing him in a bag and dumping him in the nearby pond, supposedly dragging him through some bushes as they went. However, Probert didn't feel very comfortable to have the body so close to the cottage he was renting, so they relocated the body to a pond further away. This murder too caused a massive stir and drew people from far and wide to the cottage. As Probert owed rent on the cottage, a lot of his personal items were sold off in an auction, allowing enthusiasts to be able to buy some of his belongings. Those not interested in those wares on offer had the opportunity to tour the cottage for a shilling. It didn't take long before a veritable sightseeing tour was created around the site. The anonymous author of A Narrative of the Mysterious and Dreadful Murder of Mr. Weare describes how the tour began in Elstree. Here the grave of Mr. Weare in Elstree churchyard was visited, and the pond, about a quarter of a mile out of the village, where the body of the unfortunate man was found. The Artichoke Inn, to which the corpse was carried, and where the coroner's inquest was held, was, for more reasons than one, an object of great attraction. Mr. Field, the landlord, being one of the jury, was fully competent to the task of answering the numerous questions put to him by customers. Here the sack, in which the remains of the victim had been carried from Probert's cottage, was shown. The marks of blood which it bears gave it peculiar interest in the eyes of those who coveted to see everything in any way connected to the murder. A few persons were accommodated with small pieces of the sack, which they seemed to regard as relics of extraordinary value. Upon completion of the tour, visitors had of course the option of buying a souvenir. Those who weren't lucky enough to get a piece of the cloth of the supposed sack Weare had been transported in could always opt for a book about the murder, which included a map that traced the dead body's journey to its final resting place. I wasn't able to find any evidence that they made porcelain figures of the Radlett murder as well, but at the very least the more well-to-do could purchase a commemorative mug with the murderer's face on it. Apparently those with no money to spend at all opted to pilfer the bush right outside the cottage through which the dead body had supposedly been dragged, causing the bush to look a little paltry at some point. That visitors of all walks of life were attracted to these sites is clear when we consider that no one other than Sir Walter Scott, the author, took the tour with some of his friends in 1828. And with that, I will leave you today. I hope you enjoyed our little ramble through Victorian murders, murder tourism, and souvenirs. Stay tuned for the next episode where we talk about Madame Tussauds Chamber of Horrors, in which the waxworks of famous murderers were as lifelike as possible. Until next time, stay spooky and cozy, my friends.